Fantasy football season approaching very quickly here, and here's a few quarterbacks I think are great sleeper options this season. The first guy, Trey Lance of the San Francisco 49ers. I know a lot of people are high on Lance this season. Well, last year, in the few ball games he started when Jimmy Garoppolo was down, I don't think he was that impressive. 603 pass yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 windows, 168 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. So right now, he's been going top 10 in quarterback rankings in some websites and some leagues as well. And going about 8th, 9th, 10th round in most fantasy leagues here is Trey Lance. And the thing is with him, he's got to throw the football better, no doubt about it. The few games we saw him last season, we didn't see much out of him in the passing game. But he's going to get a lot of yards on the ground and score anywhere from 5 to 10 fantasy points at least per game on the ground here is Trey Lance. And that's why a lot of people are high on him. And obviously the 49ers are high on him, coming right out of the gate in training camp, saying he's going to be the day one opening day starter here is Lance. So he's got good weapons on the offense over there in San Francisco. He got Deebo Samuel. He just re-signed a big contract. Brandon Ayuk, even though he's been a hit-or-miss guy. George Kittle, if he could stay on the field, one of the better tight ends in the league. And then some decent running backs over there. Eli Mitchell, you got Jeffrey Wilson Jr., Trey Sermon, and Hasty as well. So this offense pretty well rounded out, but they're going to build it, I think, around him like a Lamar Jackson type of offense here and use their explosive guys like a Deebo Samuel in gadget type of plays as well. So Lance, if you want a guy who could be a sleeper and on just running the football alone, like I mentioned, they'll get you 5-10 points weekly here. And then if the passing comes into play, he could be good as well for fantasy owners. But right here, I think people are jumping the gun just a bit on Trey Lance in terms of ranking him over guys like Aaron Rodgers, even Kirk Cousins right now. But he's definitely a sleeper option because there is a chance he could break out and be a top 5 quarterback this season in fantasy. But right now, I'm going to have him more as a sleeper option than a guy who's going to come out of the gate firing on all cylinders. The next guy's Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts. So Matt Ryan, after spending 13 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons, he got traded to the Colts in the offseason. It was a pretty surprising move, but the Falcons going in a different direction with a lot of young guys. And this season, they'll open the year with Marcus Mariota as their quarterback. So last season for Matty Ice, 3,968 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 intos, 82 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and 4 fumble losses. So now he goes to a better offense over there in Indy, obviously with the best running back in the game right now, Jonathan Taylor, who's going number 1 in most fantasy leagues this season. Then you got Michael Pittman, who had a good second year last year. Now they just got to find that second guy in that offense over there in Indianapolis. But Matt Ryan's a veteran. This Colt team, they built on running the football and playing good defense. But Matty Ice still could stretch the field and get the ball down the field. And him and Michael Pittman, I think they're going to have a good rapport. Now we just got to get the tight ends in the mix here is Matty Ryan. You got Mo Alley-Cox, Doyle's over there as well. And you got Naheem Hines is a good back that could line up as a wide receiver as well in the formation. So right here, Matt Ryan, not many people are looking to draft him this season in fantasy football. And he definitely could be a guy that could be surprising. I'm not saying go out there and draft him as your starter, but as a backup, as a guy who potentially could be your starter down the line this season. He's got good value of a guy not even getting drafted in some fantasy leagues, and he's a sleeper this year. The next guy's Mac Jones, the New England Patriots. So Mac Jones last season, not too bad of a year for Mac. 3,801 yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 intos, 129 rush yards, and 2-point conversions. So right here, Mac Jones, the number 1 guy over here in New England. I know a few seasons ago Cam Newton was over with there, but I think it could be a breakout year. Plays in a pretty tough division. We know Buffalo, one of the best teams in the AFC. Miami, they improved getting Tyreek Hill, Chase Edmonds, and a couple parts on defense. And also the Jets, they've improved a little bit, but I still think they'll only win 4 to 5 games this season. Plus, New England Patriots, no matter who's a quarterback, have owned the Jets over the last 20 seasons as long as Bill Belichick is there. So right now, this Patriot offense, we know they're built as well like the Colts with a good physical run game and a good defense to go. Damian Harris, Rondé Stevenson, you got Devontae Parker this season. You got Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith at your tight ends position. And also, you got Jacoby Myers. So they got a decent little offense over there in New England. And Mac Jones last season definitely took a bigger step than he did the season before here. So right now, a guy going pretty much undrafted in most fantasy leagues. Another guy I would take a flyer on in the late rounds of your fantasy draft and have on your bench. And if he gets going, I wouldn't be surprised if he could be a starter for fantasy owners this season. Next guy's Jameis Winston of the New Orleans Saints. So Winston, he's banged up a little bit right now in training camp and coming off, obviously, a torn ACL. So he's day-to-day with the foot injury. But Jameis, he's got a pretty decent offense around him, and we saw what he's capable of when he gets an opportunity. I know those Tampa Bay Buccaneer teams weren't good, but he still was a quarterback that was good for fantasy and a guy who could get the ball down the field to his playmakers like a Mike Evans, Chris Godwin in those Tampa Bay Buc days. So last season, before he went down with the ACL for New Orleans, he was pretty decent. 1,170 pass yards, 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and 166 rush yards with a fumble loss. So Winston, he's usually a high turnover guy. One season throwing over 30 interceptions, but last season he looked decent. This year, Michael Thomas is coming back, even though I'm not counting on Michael Thomas at all here for this New Orleans Saints team. So if you watch some of my other videos before going into drafts, Michael Thomas is a guy that I think's a bust and a guy that I think I would avoid going into all fantasy leagues, and you get nothing out of them. But they got other weapons here in New Orleans. They signed Jarvis Landry. I don't know how much he really has left, though. They got Olave in the draft. You got Alvin Kamara, still one of the best receiving running backs in all pro football, and Mark Ingram as well, who could help this offense. So right here, he's got decent weapons around him over there this season is Winston. The key for him is to stay healthy, and if he stays healthy, I think he has a sleeper type of season, and he's another guy you take a flyer on in late rounds, and he possibly could pan out to be a starting quarterback for your fantasy team, and then you trade the guy you drafted for another piece. And the final quarterback that I think could be a sleeper this season is Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So his rookie season, no doubt about it, was a train wreck for the first pick overall in last year's draft. 3,641 pass yards, 12 touchdowns of only 17 interceptions. Showed some running, though, 334 rush yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 two-point conversions and 5 fumble losses. So right here, Urban Meyer immediately out of there after half a season pretty much in Jacksonville. And the Jaguars, they made some upgrades on the offense, even though they definitely overpaid guys. You got Evan Ingram over there, a decent tight end weapon for Lawrence to count on as a security blanket. Christian Kirk, they signed to a deal. You got Travis Etienne, former college teammate that a lot of people are high on, but I'm not, honestly, coming into the season. And you still got James Robinson there as well, coming off of injury. So they got some weapons over there in Jacksonville this season, better this year than last year. But we'll see what Trevor Lawrence could do. Right now, he's going about 14th, 15th round at the back end of fantasy drafts, and it would be not surprising to me at all if he comes out and has a good season as a sleeper option, and a guy not many people are thinking about right now. And if this Jacksonville team's trailing in a lot of games, which I think they will be, he's going to have to throw the rock 40, 45 times a game. So I think Lawrence could be a decent fantasy option and definitely a quarterback that could be a sleeper this season. So that's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers here heading into fantasy drafts within the next few weeks.